if you guys feel anything in this space, I think a lot of the communities we're in are kind of inherently pro um, AI in a general sense, which makes sense. I'm dealing with some things that are sort of like right now in many circles, being AI native, being built around AI is like the thing to do. And if you're not doing that, you're out of touch. You're behind, or why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you optimizing everything with LLMs and workflows and chatbots that you can do? And there's obviously sort of pushbacks, both you know for environmental reasons or political reasons or whatever. Um, and it's been interesting to kind of be in some of those spaces, or like to weave between them in a lot of things that I'm doing most recently. And where I'm going with this is, I was talking with one group this week. They basically were, I think the technical term for them would be a non-governmental organization, or nonprofit, but just how much their organization is. Oh, we don't. We organizationally, we're taking the instant thing of like they said it to me like we're using as little AI as possible. What they meant was we're trying not to use large language models, and maybe to an extent, um, not replacing human workers in what they were doing with automation. Um, and it's just been interesting to kind of get. I think there's like a very small, and maybe it's not that small, but there's certain spaces that are seeming much more AI, uh, like being much more aware of the opting in to AI, or having non-AI alternatives. Like that's something that's I don't like that's I think that's and what I mean by AI is the way people mean it now, like non-LLM based alternatives to what they're trying to do. And I don't think there's going to be some revolution to that end or anything like that at all. But it's kind of been interesting to me how there's been a little bit of, it doesn't seem like isolated people anymore kind of just spouting that out. It's like, oh, like there's a kind of a counter trend emerging here to that end in ways that I haven't previously, I don't know, been exposed to or observed. So that's one part of it. I was just gonna mention something else. Um, in in kind of broader related notes, and I'm curious if you have like a brief moment or so. I'm curious what we talked about earlier today because I don't want to rehash anything that came up. Um, yeah, or anything you want me to particularly talk about or not talk about. I guess maybe is the easiest way to say it.
I mean, we just talked about a lot of things with like connectomics and brain emulation that Morgan brought
Okay.
up. We also had some things on just some of the things going on at the tower. So, I mean, but you can
Okay.
talk about whatever you want, really.
Okay. So yeah, some more specific technical, like technically domain specific stuff and happenings. Yeah, my a lot of my updates are. Oh yeah, okay. I remember what I was gonna say. Um, in the last sort of 2 weeks, a number of things have emerged and happened in good ways. Interestingly, one of them, and I don't know if I can easily share my screen here. Oh, maybe I could do. Um, yeah, maybe I'll try this. Oh, um, yeah. So I haven't actually read this article about it, but I'll share my screen and share this because this happened a couple, I don't know, 10 days ago or so. Um, and something interesting came up during it. This essentially is plot twisters, right? And they got the MetaGov fellowship. They did this sort of, I don't know how it was structured in terms of they had like 4 months and a certain amount of funding to do certain things, but Needless to say, they've been working on this since essentially this summer, and they kind of did their final presentation this time. They made you know a very kind of interpersonal co-regulation based game called Small Houses Court. It's kind of interesting to have it abstracted out from the rest of the world, and a lot of the updates. Um, a lot of the updates were basically, making it a little bit more strange because essentially the Small Houses Court is sort of an ironic twist on, you know, oh, we're going to court, you're going to jail, and my lawyer is going to sue you. This is much more of a, um, mm, interesting. They put this here. Um, yeah, it's sort of, um, the this movement towards making it kind of more accessible to resolve certain conflicts, and it will play a specific part in the game world. So they've done a lot of work to um I'm trying to find the map. They've done a lot of work of trying to make it a little bit more accessible. And we did the playtesting, or I was part of the playtesting group some months ago, and they presented it. They did a final thing, final presentation here. They kind of updated their model. I think, do they even have a? Do they have the link? I'm not. I can't. It's currently like inherently a two-player game, so I can't even play it myself right now necessarily. It'd be kind of awkward, but they don't have the link to it here. Anyway, it doesn't particularly matter. It was a good thing for plot twists. I'm very happy for them, and we're moving forward and building on that. What I also wanted to mention is, and I don't think I'll be able to find it. Remember the one that came up in the meeting was one of the authors of a new IEEE um, standard, and it had to do with the terms and conditions. And as I understand it, the terms and conditions were this movement towards, like it's kind of like you have to opt in or just say yes. Basically, it was a movement towards being able to give the user more say in terms of how their conditions are accepted or denied or mitigated. Say, well, we want to, giving them supposedly more agency about it. I don't know what entirely that entails or how it's coming out, but one of the authors of that standard was in the meeting, and I was interested to hear a little bit of their work to that end. Um, so that's one of the things that came up with the opt in, opt out stuff, and then like this sort of a slight there's a slight feeling of AI nativity and opting in and opting out, and there's a little bit of a different, not a wave, but it's like a slight breeze in a different direction is sort of emerging in the landscape, which is interesting. Um, so that's one set of things. The other things, I don't know if I can easily share this. I might do it like this. The other big thing this week that's sort of relevant to us in a bit of the cognition futures type sense. Where did it go? He says with a very long pause as he's. Oh, I don't like how it does that sometimes. Um, I try to pull a tab off of it, and then it like merges it into the other side of the screen. It's like, no, I just want to make separate tabs, man. Um, I don't even know how to get rid of it right now. Uh, yes, separate the tabs. Thank you. All right. Um, there's been a lot of things going on with plot twisters overall, and I'm not quite sure how to best address them yet. Because some things are in the work and we're working on certain prototypes, and some things are more public and less public right now. But what I can say is, oh yeah, this is a very interesting event. Uh, it's MIT hard mode, which is like kind of the first hackathon from it's AI, and of course and hardware. Um, and it's going to be a hackathon focused on intelligent objects, so devices that sense, learn, adapt, and respond to people around them. So it's not it's not another chatbot, and it's not another app. It's real hardware you can hold, wear, share, install, and live with. But as you know, I'm a big fan of the MIT AHA group and what they're doing, so I'll try to be involved in that in some form. A number of hackathons and things happening. Some things in San Diego. The DS3, the data science group in San Diego is happening. I don't think I have anything about that here. They're having their conference hackathon. Also, UC launch. I don't know if I have anything interesting here about that. Uh, UC launch is that paper too. UC launch is sort of their own startup accelerator thing for the whole university system. I guess it's based in Berkeley, but I attended some things about that this week and may may be involved in that somewhat ahead. We'll see. Um, Maybe next time. I didn't have time to fully read this paper. This came up from the Brain Inspired group. This was a very interesting. I kind of got half the conversation because of the timing and stuff, but um, this was the Beyond Networks Towards Adaptive Models of Biological Complexity. It's by Luis, and it was discussed in the last Brain Inspired meeting. I don't know if you were there, Morgan, or not. I I didn't see, but I also I wasn't looking very hard for anything because I was like in commute and cafes and noisy places and stuff. Um, but it was interesting. It kind of got at. It was another attempt. So many things seem to be trying to approach the common problem of I don't know. This came up in plot twisters too for what we're doing, and it totally crossed domains. But it's the problem between okay, you have sort of this agent or this one system that is a partial degree of knowing how it works internally and not, and there's a mesh point on the system's boundary as it goes into as it interacts with the broader world, the agent and environment, and stuff, and then the forces top down, sort of like Lewis is kind of getting at a number of things into advanced network complexity theory, et cetera. But one of them was sort of better attempts at trying to demarcate or bring some sense to the meso space between sort of the top down or macro type stuff and the micro internal, more internal stuff. And I think that's maybe not even a very fair take on things, because I think there's a lot more many points he made than that. But that was one that stuck out to me, or at least there was some interesting discussion in the meeting about that for sure. Um, so we might do that next time. What I wanted to specifically mention was this. Um, the last thing that I'll mention is essentially this. I was at this meeting, which is also the MIT AHA group. And this was RN and Jennifer are sort of in-house experts, but Michelle Vaccaro is, I guess, other side of the house at MIT, um, Data Systems and Society. And this was essentially she was somewhat candid at the start, like, oh, I haven't presented this in a while, but it was essentially about her review paper, which was this. Ooh, um, it was sort of this bigger review paper of um, a review systematic review and meta analysis around what are they what's the good and the bad of the AI collaborations, and overall these findings highlight the heterogeneity of these effects on human collaboration and point to promising avenues for improvement. um, when we found we when humans outperformed AI alone, we found performance gains in the combination, but when the AI outperformed humans alone, we found losses. So I think some of what they're getting at is like it's kind of the, and I think we all have sensed this or heard versions of it, but the sort of affirmation at that scale that if you're good at AI and know how to do stuff, then yeah, AI is going to help you. But if you're significantly incompetent, then it doesn't going to help you, as someone once said. And or at least it's not gonna massively turn you into at least according to the reviews they did, it will not turn you into AI enhanced super entity quite yet. I say that a little humorously, but what I actually liked in the discussion was not so much the paper was, um, good, but I really enjoyed the discussion, and some of it's a response. Like this person's response wasn't what triggered it or not. I was gonna say this anyway. It's kind of funny because this person when I was talking to the the AHA group itself some months ago, I basically said this to the group, which is kind of funny that it came here. I was like how is this gonna, how are we gonna actually create shift in how things are happening as opposed to just being in you know i- academic academic circles and whatnot, and cool people, people finding it interesting and amusing amongst themselves. And I do stand by like my immediate response was actually here. Um, and I do think Daha is actually doing a good amount of this, and their aims are in the right place in terms of bringing stuff out in the world. Um, but beyond that, I think the most interesting part of the talk for me was the basically the very end and the discussion. There's a good time of there's a good, and I really like this. Uh, to be very frank, I like the way this set up much more than the previous time because one of the previous meetings essentially felt like a vendor giving a product demo, and there wasn't a lot of uh, substantive critique and feedback. This there was like a good 20 minutes of maybe even 30 minutes of like discussion and what does this mean and active questions and and kind of building upon where they wanted where things were going ahead and different studies that were related to how do you talk Vaccaro, I think that's the right name. Yeah, Vaccaro is also doing um, some interesting work on like how you talk to your LLM matters in collaboration. And is was very careful that this doesn't mean we don't think that they're alive or conscious. We just notice that when certain like if you basically if you talk very negatively to the LLM in terms of the main point of her study there was negotiations and whatnot, or obviously high stakes situation I suppose. But the title was about negotiations specifically. But if you talk very poorly, then that um, did not lead to wonderful outcomes. But if you were warm or positive, that was that seemed to uh, be more beneficial to outcomes. So that was interesting. And then also, finally, this is sort of one of the final slides that was in her original presentation from today. And between that and if I can pull this up quickly here, uh, between this and yeah, here we go. There's a previous slide which I guess can I do this? Yeah. So I mean, this was sort of there's the two of the things that they were getting at, like what's ahead or what to do. One of them is obviously developing better metrics. Um, and in the original meta review, um, she tried to take domains from like I think it was medical AI interaction, executive or leadership or management leadership, and then another, I think it might have been education. I don't remember the third one, but just these sort of two slides of, you know, um, developing better metrics, composite, asymmetrical error costs, process metrics, and then like developing cross study standards are sort of these things that she it was very interesting to talk about. We had like a nice set of follow-up questions about like where does this going? And this kind of dovetails a little bit into maybe things like open source sustainability or the other themes of like doing science, doing research differently. But I asked a question about about these sort of cross study standards and whatnot, and um, so one of the things that came up in that discussion was registered reporting in journal and publishing, and I think sort of the idea there is like really giving people the opportunity to report what their findings are, and trying to dismiss pressure around, oh, we used AI and the outcome wasn't good, or that wasn't good, or it wasn't very interesting, so we're not going to publish our results, and just things like that, which is nice. But I'm also very interested in the higher levels of what it maybe isn't captured very well on the slides, but a lot of the work that I'm interested in terms of making things translatable and making things developing these sort of cross-domain standards or these interdisciplinary Rosetta Stones or these ways of communicating across the domains and the sounds we have came up there in a nice way. So I'll leave it at that. Um, uh, Oops, I'm pressed the wrong button somehow. Okay, here we go. That's what I want to do. There's a few other things this week too, but in the interest of general time, um, it's been interesting. It's been interesting to see um, to see the discussions that both sort of in the technical development, like in academia, and also in people wanting to do stuff in, you could say, business or just more applied senses. It's been interesting to see a little bit of, I don't know, the slight bits of emergence of I don't know. I think people's attitudes, even just how they're talking about it, is just a little bit different this year. But nothing major. Like I don't have any broad like, oh, this is the year of blah 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 blah. And I don't know how much you guys have talked about like the Claude bots or the Molt bots and all that stuff. And yeah,
Yeah, we did
and
talk
so
about
it's like
that.
it um
I was pointing
I
out that
yeah.
Lady Ada was using uh, OpenClaw to do
Mm.
firmware programming, testing, validation on
Yeah.
her YouTube yesterday.
And then I came in hearing a little bit of that and like,
Oh,
what
okay.
does this turn into like a product? How does this make you change like what you're building, kind of stuff? Yeah. Um, I had a kind of a fun. I always love mentioning this movie whenever I can because it's such a niche movie and it's kind of cool and super relevant from like generations ago. Not to date anybody here who may know it, but someone was talking about Claude the Molt bots or whatever and how they're like talking to themselves or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, I mentioned like it's totally Colossus the Forbin project, which is like this, like 60s or 70s type film where the two big AIs, the US, the Soviet
Yeah,
AI,
I know the movie.
and they talk to themselves and take over the world or try to, and 007 saves the day or whatever. But yeah, it's funny because like it's so funny to say who knows that movie or who doesn't, and like how they react to these kind of things and seeing this stuff happen. But yeah, I mean that um, There's a lot more. There's a lot more to say about a lot of things. I am closer to having Joe Pro being a version of a nonprofit itself, which is exciting. With some stuff I want to do down the road, and other like things that we can do with that, or that I can help supplement this, or orthogonal lab and other groups doing with that too, and things like that. I'll say some more about some things offline because there's some like advising opportunities and things that I'm curious about as well. But a lot's moving, and I think it's going to be a very interesting year in terms of both. Like I will be in Princeton in a few weeks for an event there, which will be fun, and the New York celebration. Oh yeah, New York celebration of women in computing. Submissions are closed, but that is registrations are open. I'm unsure if I'll be doing anything, hosting anything there because we had a really good batch of submissions, and we want to center, people's talks and stuff as much as we can. I might do some kind of career related panel or AI stuff,
Yeah.
and there's also there might be a mini hackathon and some other like playtesting thing, both of which I may be a part of for that. But I'm just happy to. I think it'll be very good, and I think it's going to be a great event this year. There's the Embodied Intelligence Conference workshop too, which I haven't made anything to, but I will, and I'm curious if we have anything we want to submit to that this year or thoughts about that. But a lot of stuff kind of emerging, and it's I feel it's happening where it's like it's February and like I'm standing outside a window and it's snowing here, and I'm very happy about. I kind of like the snow right now, but I kind of want it to be like the quiet, like deeper winter parts, and it's like nope, like it's March is here, and the summer's here really soon. And like I know Bradley's been doing stuff with the Google Summer Code stuff, and I don't know if there are any the next deadlines for any if there's any like deadlines or things to help with on our usual late winter into spring transition things. Let me know, and I'll try to make things happen there. But everything's happening now. It's like here we go. The train's left the station, so looking forward to that.
Yeah. All right. What do we? Thank you, Jesse, for that update and all the cool stuff there. And